All right, ready for another deep dive?
Always. What do we have today?
Well, we're going to dive into, I haven't been entirely honest with you.
Uh,
It's an audiobook by Miranda Hart.
Miranda Hart, the comedian.
Yeah, exactly. From shows like Miranda and Call the Midwife.
Oh, wow. So what's the book about? Stand up.
Actually, it's a bit of a departure from that. It's part memoir, part self-help.
Interesting. So what's the self-help part about?
It actually delves into her experience with undiagnosed Lyme disease for like a whole decade.
Oh, wow. That's serious. So it's like a health memoir.
Kinda, yeah. But it also goes deeper into what she calls treasures.
Treasures. What are those?
Like practical tools, values, insights, things like that.
Okay, I'm intrigued. And we're basing this on reviews and summaries.
Yep, we've got all sorts of juicy details to unpack.
And there's even a love story woven in there, apparently.
Oh yeah, can't forget about that.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump in. What struck you first about this audiobook, knowing it's Miranda Hart?
Well, I think the most fascinating thing is that despite her comedic background, she doesn't hold back on the vulnerability.
Yeah, the sources really highlight how open she is about the struggles of dealing with undiagnosed Lyme disease.
For years, she had no idea what was wrong with her, facing disbelief from doctors and everything.
And the impact it had on her life was pretty major.
Yeah.
Sources mentioned chronic fatigue, difficulty walking. She even had to put her career on hold.
It's a good reminder that you never really know what someone's going through, even those who seem to have it all.
Exactly. But what's interesting is that Hart doesn't just dwell on the negative.
Right. She uses this experience to empower others.
Yeah, instead of focusing on the hardship, she tunes her struggles into these treasures we talked about.
Tools for navigating life's challenges and finding happiness. I like that.
Okay, so let's dig into these treasures a bit. What are some examples? How does she present them?
Well, one that really stood out to me is the idea of surrendering to negative situations.
Surrendering.
Yeah.
Like giving up.
Not exactly. It's more about accepting what you can't control instead of constantly fighting it.
Okay, I see. So how does that apply to her experience with Lyme disease?
Well, she talks about how initially she resisted the diagnosis, which just led to more anxiety and frustration.
Makes sense. So by surrendering, she was able to.
Focus on what she could control, like managing her symptoms and finding joy in the things she could still do.
That's a pretty powerful perspective shift, especially coming from someone who's been through so much.
It is, and she
Yeah.
doesn't just present this as some abstract concept.
Right, it's all woven into her personal experiences.
Exactly. She shares anecdotes, making these treasures relatable and applicable to everyday life.
So it's not like a theoretical self-help book, but something more grounded in her own journey.
Precisely. And even when discussing serious topics, her natural wit shines through.
The reviews definitely pick up on that. They say her humor makes the audiobook really engaging and, dare I say, entertaining.
Oh, absolutely. It's like she's having a conversation with you rather than lecturing you.
And speaking of that conversational feel, the reviews also mention that hearing Hart narrate her own story adds a whole other dimension to the audiobook.
Yes, her background as a comedic actress definitely shines through in her narration.
You can hear the emotion in her voice, the genuine desire to connect with the listener.
It's like she's sitting right there with you, sharing her story over a cup of tea.
That's a great way to put it. Now, there's a phrase that pops up in a lot of the reviews. Treacly truisms. Some found her writing style a bit too sweet or sentimental at times.
Ah, yes. I saw that too.
But given her narration and the audio format, do you think it comes across differently?
That's a great question. It's definitely possible. You know, phrases that might seem cliche in print could take on a new meaning when spoken aloud.
Especially with the warmth and sincerity that Hart brings to her narration.
Exactly. It's like the difference between reading a quote and hearing someone say it with conviction. It can completely change the impact.
That makes sense. And it highlights the power of the audiobook format for these kinds of personal narratives.
Definitely. You get a sense of the author's personality and emotions that you might miss on the page.
So we've talked about the serious stuff, but let's not forget about the lighter side. Remember, there's a love story woven into all of this.
Oh, right. I almost forgot about that. It seems she found love amidst all the challenges she was facing.
Yeah, and it's not just a fleeting mention. The reviews suggest it's a significant part of her journey, a testament to finding joy, even in the face of adversity.
That's really heartwarming to hear.
And there's this one detail about her first date with the boy that's just too good not to share.
Oh, what happened?
Apparently, their first date involved her complaining about a messed up takeaway pizza.
Uh-huh. No way. Seriously.
Seriously, it's so perfectly Miranda, you know.
It really is. And I guess it worked because they ended up getting married.
They did. But before we get too caught up in the romance, I want to circle back to the treasures.
Yes, let's delve a little deeper into those.
You mentioned the idea of surrender. What are some of the other tools she explores in the audiobook?
Well, one that really resonated with me is the concept of self-compassion.
Self-compassion, that's a big one.
It is. Hart really emphasizes the importance of treating yourself with kindness and understanding, especially during tough times.
I think that's something a lot of us struggle with. We're often our own harshest critics.
Absolutely. But she challenges that tendency, encouraging listeners to cultivate a more compassionate inner voice.
So it's not just about saying be kind to yourself, but actually providing tools to make that happen.
Exactly. She
Okay.
even includes practical exercises and techniques to help develop self-compassion.
Oh, that's great. So she's not just talking the talk, she's walking the walk,
Right, and she weaves in personal anecdotes about how she's applied these techniques in her own life.
which makes it all the more relatable and achievable for the listener.
Absolutely. It's not coming from some self-help guru on a pedestal. It's coming from someone who's been through it and found these tools helpful in her own healing.
That authenticity really shines through. Now, there's another treasure that caught my eye. The idea of embracing your true self.
Ah, yes. That's a recurring theme throughout the book.
It is. And it seems like a natural extension of the self-compassion piece.
Definitely. Hart encourages listeners to shed societal expectations and just be authentically themselves.
Quirks and all.
Exactly, quirks and all. And that's where that treacly aspect might actually work in her favor.
How so?
Because she's so open and vulnerable herself, it encourages the listener to do the same.
It's like she's giving permission to embrace your own vulnerabilities and imperfections.
Precisely. And in a world that often feels obsessed with presenting a perfect image, that's a really powerful message.
It is. It makes me wonder if that's part of what makes this audiobook so appealing. It's not about striving for some unattainable ideal. It's about embracing the messiness of life.
I think you're onto something there. That authenticity and vulnerability are definitely relatable.
It's like she's not pretending to be some self-help guru with all the answers.
Yeah, she's just sharing her own struggles, her triumphs, her doubts, her discoveries.
And in doing so, she creates a space for the listeners to connect with their own experiences.
And that connection is made even stronger by the audiobook format.
Oh, definitely. Hearing her voice, her inflections, those moments of humor and vulnerability, it really does feel like a conversation with a friend.
It's not just a lecture.
Exactly. And it allows her personality to come through in a way that you might miss in a printed book.
That warmth in her voice, the genuine desire to connect.
Speaking of warmth, we can't forget about the love story. It's such a nice addition to the narrative.
It is a reminder that even amidst challenges, life can surprise you with beautiful connections.
And it's not just a fluffy romantic subplot.
Yeah.
It sounds like their relationship was a genuine source of strength and support for her.
Especially during such a difficult time.
And remember how they met? It's too good not to mention again. Her future husband was the guy who fixed the mold problem in our house.
Oh, yeah, the mold guy. It's like something out of a rom-com.
Totally. Talk about fate stepping in.
It really is a delightful anecdote.
And their connection went beyond just fixing a leaky roof, too. He was incredibly supportive throughout her health struggles.
That's so important, having that kind of support system when dealing with chronic illness.
Absolutely. And it seems like that sense of connection extends beyond just her personal relationship.
So.
Well, in the audiobook, it feels like Hart is reaching out to the listener.
Inviting them to join her on this journey of self-discovery and growth.
Exactly. And that's where those treacly truisms that some reviewers mentioned might actually work in her favor.
Interesting. How do you mean?
Well, because she's so open about her own struggles and insecurities, it gives the listener permission to do the same.
It's like she's saying, hey, it's okay to not have all the answers, to be messy and imperfect.
We're all in this together.
I like that. Creating a safe space for listeners to embrace their imperfection.
And embark on their own journeys.
Exactly. And that's what makes this audiobook so much more than a self-help guide.
It's a personal story, a celebration of human connection, a reminder that even in tough times, there's hope.
Hope for healing, growth, and even love. Well said.
And that brings us to a point I want to emphasize. Despite the serious subject matter, this audiobook is ultimately hopeful.
It is. It would be easy for a memoir about chronic illness to become very bleak.
But this is a testament to the human spirit finding light in dark places.
Hart's journey is one of healing, both physically and emotionally.
And that's a powerful message for anyone facing their own challenges.
Absolutely. She's saying, hey, I went through this, it was rough, but I came out on the other side.
And you can too. And she's not just offering empty platitudes.
No, she's sharing the tools and insights that actually helped her along the way.
The treasures.
Exactly.
And it's not just about individual healing either. Do you remember that review from Waterstones?
Remind me.
They called it essential reading for anyone feeling crushed and exhausted by modern life.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a good one.
I think that really sums up the broader relevance of Hart's message.
It does. We live in a world that's constantly demanding more from us.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed and depleted.
Hart's book offers a way to step back from all of that, to reconnect with ourselves.
And find a more sustainable way forward.
So true.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm left with a sense of hope and a renewed appreciation for the power of vulnerability.
It's powerful stuff.
Miranda Hart could have kept all her struggles private, but she chose to share them.
And in doing so, she's offered a real gift to anyone who's ever felt lost or alone.
It's true. Now, before we go, I wanted to touch on something you mentioned earlier.
Oh, what's that?
You said that this audiobook might resonate with people beyond just Miranda Hart's fans.
All right, yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. I think anyone who struggled with their health, felt overwhelmed by life, or just looking for some inspiration will find something to connect with in her story.
It's not just for the self-help junkies.
No, not at all. And it's especially well suited to the audiobook format.
Because of her narration.
Exactly. You get that intimacy and authenticity that you might miss in print.
You can hear the emotion in her voice, the humor, the warmth.
And for those who might be put off by the phrase treacly truisms, it's important to remember that those phrases hit differently when spoken aloud.
Oh, totally. Context is everything.
In print, they might feel cliché, but when delivered by Hart, with her warmth and humor, they take on a new meaning.
Like heartfelt advice from a friend.
That's a great way to put it.
And it's not just the truisms. Her narration brings the whole audiobook to life.
She's a natural storyteller, and she really knows how to use her voice.
And she doesn't just rely on her voice either. Remember, the reviews mentioned sound effects, music, changes in setting.
Right, it adds to that immersive feeling.
It's like she's creating a multisensory experience.
And that's what makes this audiobook so special. It's more than just a book on tape.
It's its own work of art.
Well said.
So as we wrap up, I'm curious, what treasures have you, dear listener, discovered in your own life?
What tools or insights have helped you navigate the rough patches and find your way back to joy?
Share your treasures with us on social media. And if you're looking for a dose of hope, humor, and honesty, I highly recommend checking out I Haven't Been Entirely Honest with You on Audible.
It's a unique listening experience, and I think it has something to offer everyone.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.